All right, everyone. The New York Times has penned what may be the funniest article that I've actually read this year. I kid you not, link in the description. You will laugh your ass off if you have any common sense. This is the kind of propaganda that I'm talking about when I say that the legacy media can't get its head around Trump, has become totally hypocritical. They don't even really know what they're doing. The New York Times, along with the rest of the U.S. press, basically, the legacy media, for months now has claimed that Trump owns the Korean situation. He owns it. It's his fault that it's fucked up. Now all of a sudden, now that things are very warm and chummy and you may get a peace treaty ending an almost 75-year-old conflict, I think it's 65 years actually this year, or next year, roughly. Now that that's going to happen, Trump has nothing to do with it. No, the fact that he sailed aircraft carriers in and talked about having a red button that worked that was bigger than Kim's had nothing to do with it. The fact that he sent Pompeo in on a fucking secret mission to North Korea like he was 007 had nothing to do with it. The fact that he gets along with Jinping and actually got China for the first time to agree to sanctions that weren't totally fucking toothless on 2 different occasions, that has nothing to do with it. No, Jinping did that on his own. Trump had nothing to do with it at all. The fact that Trump has almost single-mindedly at times focused on the Korean Peninsula, nothing to do with it. None of these things matter. They mattered a week ago when the situation looked bad, when we thought that war could break out. There would never be peace in the Korean Peninsula. But now that it looks like the opposite is true, Trump now, he's not involved. He was only involved it's like Solon or any of these groups when they talk about Venezuela. Venezuela was the gold standard of socialism until it became untenable for them to claim it because Venezuela was collapsing. Then all of a sudden it wasn't socialism anymore. No. It has essences of market capitalism. No, it's actually a hyper-capitalistic society. You just don't understand anything, you fucking dumb peons. That's what they're claiming. They're hoping that their readership is so fucking dumb that they're not going to notice the total difference, the total 180 between this article and everything else they penned. But they're going even further. They're going so far as to claim that Trump actually not only doesn't get a benefit from, but is actually harmed by peace in Korea, and he must be enraged that there might be a peace treaty. So in other words, that wasn't his actual goal. He wanted to inflame the situation because he's such a one-dimensional fucking villain. No, I'll tell you what'll happen if a peace treaty is signed. Trump gets to come out and say, yeah, I was involved with this. And by the way, the president of South Korea is saying he should get a Nobel Prize. Are you going to ignore the South Korean president? I'm sure that Kim Jong-un will have some things to say about it. If peace is signed off, I bet Kim Jong-un will say, yeah, Trump had something to do with this. Because he did, quite clearly. Nobody can possibly deny it with a straight face. When the media says, oh, Trump was barely involved with planning this summit, you're splitting hairs, dude. Of course, he's not sitting there saying, oh, yeah, I want this color of table at the summit, and we want this design of napkins, and Melania's going to come in and you know, put up some draperies and, some nice little high school-looking fucking bunts and stuff like that. No, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that Trump, his behavior towards North Korea, even on Twitter, mattered. It got the ball rolling. There never would have been a summit because there never would have been a reason for North Korea to agree to a summit if he hadn't basically gone over to China, been buddy-buddy with Jinping, sent Pompeo into North Korea, probably to terrify Kim Jong-un and say, look, we don't want to invade you, but we're going to have no choice if you don't at least play soft with us for a while. You got to talk to the South Korean president. We're not, China might invade you. Maybe he fed him false info and said, Jinping is, look, we're going to do you a solid here. We want you to stay sovereign, but Jinping is going to invade your country because he's tired of you having the H-bomb. Look at this, faked transcript showing this. Look, it's real, I promise. You got to believe me. That's the sort of spy versus spy stuff that I would expect went on, especially with regards to someone, CIA head formerly Pompeo. Somebody who, by the way, I don't even like the fact that he got confirmed, as I believe now, as Secretary of State. I stood with Rand on that. Rand only agreed to vote for him because of hefty assurances involved. Maybe part of it was North Korea. Oh, don't worry, we're not going to start a war. We're going to end a war in North Korea. So don't worry, Rand. Just, you got to trust us on this one. Just trust my judgment this one time. Trust me. It'll pay off big dividends in the peace race. That's a good thing. The New York Times is actually claiming that it's somehow bad for Trump if peace breaks out in North Korea. So in other words, what you're really saying is that you and the other propagandists in the fake news media are going to yammer away endlessly about how Trump had nothing to do with it once peace does break out. That's basically what you're admitting to. That's going to be your operative strategy. I'm telling you right now, it won't work. It won't work for several reasons. Did you see the new polling with regards to millennial voters souring on the Democrats? The Democrats have lost bigly with regards to millennial voters. Now think, we're the most liberal voting bloc within the U.S. We're more liberal than Gen X. We're more liberal than the boomers, way more liberal than Gen Z. And even my fellow millennials are starting to wake up to the fact that the Democrats are a bunch of corporatist crooks. Which, I mean, the Republicans are barely better, but, you know, there's a difference a little bit. You know, it's called aggregates, it's called statistics, you know. There are some good Democrats, there are some shitty Republicans, but as a total, the Republicans right now at least are a little bit more sane. You know, something I never thought I'd catch myself saying 10 years ago, trust me. Trump has helped to bring peace to the Korean Peninsula. And it's good for him, because he's going to get to claim credit. Look, the centrists that don't read and take seriously the New York Times are going to give him credit. Watch the next 3 or 4 polls that come through. Yeah, I guarantee that Trump will gain approval because of this. You know, nothing else has gone, you know, terribly wrong, and then he has this to put in his hat when he runs for re-election in 2020. The New York Times thinks it's bad if there's peace. Okay. So it's not his foreign policy success because the New York Times says so. You know everything about all of the dealing that went on with regards to China, Pompeo in North Korea, secret meetings with South Korea's leadership, Shinzo Abe over in Japan. You know everything about that, I'm sure. The New York Times has well, maybe it's true because, you know, Comey leaked a bunch of info to the press, so maybe other people do too. I wouldn't be surprised. There are a bunch of leakers and they're self-righteous, you know, pompous assholes, basically. They would have been thrown under the bus by Obama and called traitors if they had done it on his watch. They'd be a little bit like Snowden, I suppose. It's nuts. Absolutely nuts that the New York Times thinks that this is going to work. Trump will probably gain 2 or 3 points just in the Korean thing. Think, like a week before, remember I said 45 is probably the magic number. If Trump's approval is above that in midterms, the Republicans, they keep the House. They probably gain a seat or 2 in the Senate. The Democrats are going to be basically crushed. There will be no blue wave. He'll probably get to 45 just because he's bringing peace to Korea. Because the South Korean president is giving him credit. Who knows more about the situation? The South Korean president or some fucking journalist at the New York Times? Journalist being, at this point, a totally subjective comment. Who knows more about the situation? Who do you think Americans are going to listen to more? Some idiot at the New York Times who probably is part of the Resist campaign? Or the president of South Korea / Jinping when he has to weigh in on it too to quiet you people down? Yeah, you got to give Trump credit where credit's due. You've got to give people credit where credit's due. Look, I can give my nemesis on Twitter credit when he does something good. He did that a few days ago. He redacts something he says, so, you know, I apologize. I'm going to give him credit. I don't like the dude necessarily. I think that his views of life are totally screwy, but he did something good. Give him a little credit where credit's due. Even if you're like a never-Trumper, so in other words, you want the opposite. You want war. Except the New York Times is taking an even more warped line. They're like, oh, Trump is the one that wants war. He's actually upset that there's peace. So then why did he send Pompeo over to North Korea? So that had no effect, number one, and shows he actually wanted to press the little red button and play cowboy. Which wars has he started? Can you remind me of where he started a theater of combat? So far, he's drawn down our presence slightly in Syria. I was hoping that when he made that announcement there with regards to Syria, I was hoping that his decision would be just to withdraw, honestly. I was disappointed when it wasn't. But at the same time, he hasn't started a war there. You know, it's dragging on the same as it was. He hasn't started a war in Afghanistan. It's been going on since, you know, I was a little kid, which is, you know, very sad reflection on our society. I hope that he withdraws from more foreign theaters, put more effort into Asia, absolutely, and the Americas. Go talk to Maduro. Look, I'm going to make a theory here. I think that Trump's original desire was to go to Israel and solve the problem there. When he realized it was fundamentally impossible, he decided to do the next best thing. The second hardest deal-making is North Korea. If he can solve the problem there, he can probably make headway with Maduro and solve the problem in Venezuela in the next couple years. Oh, he probably can. He'll march in, he'll say, Mr. Maduro, Nicholas, my dude, we can prop up your whole country. You know, we don't even want to buy oil from the Middle East, but you got to stop with the hard line. You got to work with us. You got to throw me a bone. He can do that. Yeah, he'll go whole. He'll do the same exact thing that he did apparently with Kim Jong-un. It'll take probably even less time. He'll threaten to invade Venezuela, make vague comments about, you know, maybe we should just assassinate Maduro, the people there are suffering. Maybe we should convince the Brazilians and Colombians to do a joint invasion. He'll get Maduro hot under the collar, and then he'll have someone go in and be good cop, and they'll extract all sorts of info, and then Trump will go in and he'll finish the job. He'll do the same fucking shit that he did with North Korea, and it'll be great. Peace might break out. Oh no, no wonder the neocons mobilize the propagandist fake news to go against the very idea. Peace isn't good for income. Peace isn't good for Raytheon stock. Peace isn't good for for any of these companies that Dick Cheney and John McCain and Nancy Pelosi get money from. No, peace is terrible. Merrill Lynch and all of the others. Fucking Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs doesn't want peace. No, they get to lend huge amounts of money at huge interest rates to people when there's war. Oh, it's wonderful. The weapons have to keep flowing. It's like a nonstop crack orgy of weapons and coke and opium. It's just, this is what the establishment is involved in, and people are worried about, some alt-righters. Oh, libertarians. Libertarians might take over the world and leave you alone. Trump, he might break all the toys. What toys? You mean the toys that kill millions of people every year? I hope he does break them. I hope he breaks the entire globalized world order's spine. I hope he's authentic in wanting to do so. And so far, lukewarm approval in general for his presidency. You know, it's a good presidency so far. It's not great. He hasn't done anything yet to distinguish himself as such. Great is, the DPRK gives up nukes. Venezuela is overhauled, no longer, centrally planned. And we end our involvement in Syria and Afghanistan, finally get our troops home, put them in Western Europe where, they're not, going to get shot at as often. They might get hit by a truck if they're stationed in Paris, but that might be a separate problem that Trump could deal with. Trump, it was warned early on in the first, year of his presidency. He's decreasing U.S. power. U.S. is fundamentally shit now in diplomacy. Trump is pissing away all of our capital with our allies. That's funny. I think the United States is taking the fore on the world stage much more than it was during the Obama administration. Well, the big hallmark of Obama's leadership was Libya. That, and second to that, Egypt. Wonderful. Wonderful times. Destroyed one country, almost destroyed another. Propped up a Syrian civil war, causing millions of refugees to stream out of the area, and along with millions of migrants having nothing to do with it that were admitted anyway to Western Europe. That's real leadership. That's Nobel Peace Prize worthy. Trump goes in, solves a simmering conflict that's lasted the better part of a century. Oh no, he's not involved. He doesn't like peace. He's an evil person. It's just another one-dimensionality propaganda attempt. Remember, the most fundamental central principle of propaganda, your foe must be one-dimensional. You must limit them to just the bad. Because the moment that they do something good, it breaks one-dimensionality. They're no longer a villain. Now they're just a normal human. You gotta dehumanize them. Fundamental goal of propaganda against your enemies. You must dehumanize. They can't have good features. They can't do that. You can't have a situation where the people you're targeting with your propaganda, think of them for a moment doing something normal. The same is true with positive propaganda. If you want to lionize someone, you can't have people making jokes about them taking a big greasy dump. You can't do that. Then they're too human. You have to lionize them. You have to do the opposite of dehumanizing. So Trump does get credit, I think, on the Korean issue. He's getting credit from the president of South Korea. I'm going to trust his judgment more than the New York Times, because the New York Times also thought, I guess in general, we'd be in a recession right now, probably a nuclear war. Everything would have collapsed already. Like Krugman thought that Trump merely being elected would destroy our markets. A year and a half on, do they seem destroyed, or are they churning along pretty well? Oh, they're, the jobless rate, that's down. Wages are up. Unemployment, everything's going fine, dude. Stop worrying all the time. That's about all. Peace out.